idea was to improve the human race. Force the hand of evolution. A secret government project to implant microchips in babies' brains. Their intelligence was amplified, but their lifespan shortened. Then the order came down: bury the project, eliminate the witnesses. Ed Bellamy knows too much, so they framed him for murder. He hit the road with the only friend he's got left. Maybe he can outrun them, but he can't outrun his mind. It's coming apart, dream by dream. His only chance of survival is to find Victor Heisenberg, the doctor who put the chip in his head. If he fails, or they catch him first, he will be
Hello, and welcome to a Jagged Orbit, Star Time, Dead at 21, whatever you wish. But yeah, I'm Dave, and I'm going to take you through a little bit of stargazing in space news in 2021. Why Dead at 21? Because I had the pun for Dead at 2021 in my head all day. I needed a title. Woo! It's been an exciting day, let me tell you. Okay, but let's just get on with business. I hope everyone's doing okay. It's been a rather hectic week, and that's why I kind of really haven't prepared much again. But I had this stuff kind of boiling in the back of my head because I got to do this work too. So let me take you on a quick tour of some of the major events that are going on that are not related to like the more depressing news. Yeah. Just some fun stuff. We're gonna do it's kind of funny though because 2021 doesn't have a whole lot of like really like big stargazing events that we know of. I mean, the big thing this past year was the comet, which no one really knew was gonna happen. So like we don't know if something really awesome is gonna happen again like that. It could be a good year for Northern Lights. The sun is waking up, so to speak. You may say, what do you mean the sun is waking up? Well, it's because it's been in a solar minimum for really kind of a couple of years now. So barely any sunspots on it. When you don't see a lot of sunspots, you generally don't see a lot of northern lights. Well, southern lights too, because those also happen. Just lights near the poles of the Earth. Just a lot more people live near the North Pole than the South Pole. But yeah, so it's on like a regular 11-year cycle where the sun kind of dips in and out of like a lot of activity. Activity means you see a lot of sunspots, a lot of stuff like a lot of kind of solar storms happen, breaking off the sun, flashing at it, yeah, sometimes hitting the Earth, causing big solar storm events like the Northern Lights in particular. There's always a little bit of them, but you see a fantastic display. That's a solar storm hitting the Earth. And with the sun starting to wake up, we might have some surprise Northern Lights this year. So let's hope for that. I'd love another comment. Bunch of comments. But yeah, a lot of like the regular meteor showers and stuff, they're not really they're kind of washed out by the moon this year, with the exception of the Perseids. And yeah, a lot of the eclipses are kind of low-key not great. Or they're in like hard to see places, so a lot of like unless you're actually in the tundra or Antarctica, you're gonna be kind of cheated of some eclipse action this year too. So anyway, let's get on with that, shall we? All right, we got it keyed up here. Let me actually I have show notes I gotta look at. Okay, I'm gonna actually, excuse me 1 second. I'm just gonna get my cheat sheet for 2021 because I mean, I don't remember exact dates and times very well, so shocker. Yeah, so they're obviously displayed in some of the screenshots I took earlier today. Yeah, so they're it's one of those years where if you look in a lot of what's coming up lists and do a lot of like digging on your own and like different guides and stuff, you'll see a lot of like planetary conjunctions, kind of a lot of emphasis on ones that are sort of hard to see, that occur like right at the edge of evening or sunrise, sunset, that kind of thing. That's usually an indication there's not a lot of dramatic stuff scheduled for the skies. Now, someone might notice something that didn't really stand out to anyone, and it'll be a cool thing to see or whatever. And there's still cool stuff to see, but just not like we kind of went out with like, we started with like, you know, well, midsummer or mid-spring really. We had that awesome comet. Mars came around in the summer. It was super bright, and then we ended with that like super close Christmas star, Jupiter Saturn conjunction. But yeah, now we're kind of like, so that was a pretty banging year. What do we got now? Well, this Sunday, if you have a good view of the sky at right at sunset, and you're gonna have to look like real unobstructed view. I'm including this just because it's something that's coming up this weekend. You might be able to see Sunday morning. Look to the west southwest, see if you can see Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn kind of forming a triangle. If you've got binoculars and a clear field of view, that might help considerably because they're going to be kind of drowning out in the morning light. You might just see Jupiter at first, honestly. Yeah. This is a tough one to catch. So don't be too bad if you can't catch it. But I mean, a lot of these things are sort of the things we're going for this year. Like just catching like planets kind of forming up close to each other. It's one of those years. For example, there's something that's happened in February that people are, I guarantee you, if you're into this, people are going to talk about. And I ran it through my Stellarium program. That's what all these are from. And the Stellarium can barely even display it. I included a couple of other ones that are similar to that, just so you can be like, it's hard to see. You know, it's technically conjunction because it happens whether or not you can see it. You know, but, this one is going to be a fun one, and this is like, you know, sunset, or no, this is a sunrise. Ha! Yeah, it's 5:50 a.m. that time. Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn and the moon. Look for them the morning of March 9th and 10th. The moon will be the thing that shifts the most between those two mornings. Yeah, and I mean, of course, the event and leading up to this, look for them the days before and after. The moon will just kind of like shoot across this view. So, yeah. Every day it'll be like boom, boom, boom. So I'm drinking the fizzy water on air. Now, yeah, March 10th. That's a fun one. Actually, a very cool thing to wake up to in the morning. So there's a total lunar eclipse happening in May. However, mostly for folks in the Pacific, you can see like Hawaii and Indonesia, Australia kind of have the best view. So in this map I pulled from Time and Date because NASA, they switched to using these Google Maps projections, and they don't think there's something happened with their subscription to the Google Maps key because it is displaying an error when I looked at it earlier today. So timeanddate.com. Sorry guys. Red means the most eclipse is visible. Entire eclipse, really. You can see the key there. East Coast, you're only going to see some of it. Yeah. Hawaii sees it all. Even like the Pacific doesn't see everything. So, you know, I think the Pacific will still see totality, but they won't see like the after totality section. Yeah, you get to see the first half, say, if you're in San Francisco. Now, that starts, if they live, it's in the morning. It's around like starts pretty early in the morning. Wake up early, really, for this. Go to bed early. Yeah, I think on the Pacific it's gonna be like 5 or 6 a.m. So yeah. And it's a fairly brief eclipse. Lunar eclipses last longer than solar eclipses do, but this is about 14 minutes long in totality. So 14 minutes of blood moon. What do we got here now? Oh yeah, 14 minutes of this. So, you know, and if you're on the East Coast, I don't think you're gonna see this at all. But these happen every couple times a year. Different parts of the world get to see them better than others, you know. So it's not like a solar eclipse you're missing out on. Which is what we're missing out on here. So any part of this map here that's shaded means that there is an annular, which is like the Ring of Fire eclipse. That's happening 2021. I think the next image is that. Yeah, this is the thing we added to the thumbnail. So this is kind of the biggest news this year. And actually, if you're like, I think this goes through like, this doesn't quite go through Churchill, Manitoba, but it's close. But yeah, northern Canada has got a really good shot at seeing the entirety of it. And yeah, look at the weird way the map forks around part of Siberia too. Um, anything that's shaded sees a partial eclipse um, of the sun. So you'll still see a fairly deep like partial if you're like northeast US, Greenland, Alaska, northern Alaska. Shouts out to folks in Barrow. Um, yeah, there you go. Now, then what is happening in July 12th in the evening? There's like a close encounter of. Oh, you might think, oh, it's the moon and Venus are going to be close. They're close all the time, like at least once a month, really. Several times a month, depending. But yeah, this is a Venus-Mars conjunction, and Mars is much dimmer this year than last. And it's probably even behind the tree in this screenshot here, and very dim. It's gonna set real close. This isn't gonna be a hard one to catch. Use binoculars. See the planetarium software. It did not render Mars for me. It's probably behind the tree, but also very dim compared to Venus. So, but if you can see Moon and Venus, you might actually be able to see Mars. Grab binoculars. That's the evening of July 12th. August 12th and 13th, actually. Here's a good one. Here's actually a good meteor shower at the most comfortable time of the year for folks in the Northern Hemisphere. August evenings. This sounds nice. Should be good almost all night, I believe. Yeah, there's a crescent moon and it sets fairly early. So, August 12th through 13th, that morning in particular, really good, but couple days leading up to, especially the day before and after, you'll see a good chunk of meteors too. The peak's really good. Cozy night, where get your bug spray and all that, and just have a good time. So there's a good meteor shower for you. That's kind of the best one this year. There's like a couple of minor ones that actually have fairly good appearances for minor ones. That just means like you see like 10, 15 at most, maybe 20 meteors instead of like a really dark sky like an hour, so every 2-3 minutes. So that's still not bad if you've got like you're just like hanging out and looking at the stars anyway. They're worth checking out. And those are the Draconids on October 8th, which you'll want to see in the evening. Unlike most meteor showers, it's kind of interesting. They emerge at the head of Draconis, and these ones are actually kind of slow compared to most meteors. So these are ones you kind of see like tracing across the sky. Interesting shower there. And in November, there are two sets of Taurids. These are just referred to as the Taurids, but there's technically the South and North Taurids. South Taurids technically happening in the morning of the 4th through 5th. Those will actually look pretty nice. There's barely any moon, I believe. That might even be a new moon. And it's still pretty thin moon the next week on the 11th through 12th for the North Taurids. Geminids, sadly, we just had them, and some people got to enjoy a really nice showing this year. Next year, it's a gibbous moon is washing them out for the most part. So early morning, it might have a time between when that moon sets and sunrise to catch some. That's a rough window. So, but if you're up early, December, do it. Take a peek. All right, so that's like a meteor shower news. So really, the biggest thing is the Perseids in August. That's a good one. Now, what do we got here? We got a telescope. Check out Saturn on August 2nd. It's at opposition. That means it's up all night. And highest middle of the night, obviously, because it rises when the sun sets and it sets when the sun rises, because it is opposite the sun. That is what opposition means. Because it's opposite, it means it's fully lit by the sun. Oh, there's the little, yeah. But that's when the rings are at their brightest. They actually gain like extra magnitude. I don't know if technically magnitude is the right term I should be using, but they do appear brighter. There's this neat phenomenon called the Sealinger effect. Everything kind of lines up just so and makes it extra bright. There's also a good chance to see the moons too. Though some say that because the ring's bright enough, it makes it harder to see the moons. Other folks say no, the moons are lit up just also very nicely. You at least see Titan, second biggest moon with biggest atmosphere. Yeah, that'll be a fun night. Maybe you can get some early Perseids too. Once in a while, you get a real early one. All right. So here is another one that people are going to talk about that might not be the greatest conjunction. This is the Mars-Mercury conjunction. You may notice that you might only see one thing here labeled Venus. So if you're looking in the August evenings, mid-August, Look for Mars and Mercury as well as Venus. They're closer to where the sun set. Uh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of things like this where they're really hard to see this year. Of course, in the instance of the sufferer, be behind the tree. Even then, you can clearly tell it's very hard to see. It's already very bright. Yep. What do we got here? Ooh, there is a partial lunar eclipse, but it's a pretty deep one, so you don't get the blood red moon effect. I think you might get a hint of it. 95%, and most of the U.S. and Canada, a little bit of South America, a little bit of Oceania, and Russia, Siberia get it. So check it out. That's a fun one. And eclipses come in twosies. So that means that a couple weeks before or after, boom, there's a solar eclipse. So if you're lucky enough to be stationed in Antarctica, congrats, you get to see a total solar eclipse. If you're in that red ring in particular, you get to see totality. I think most of the bases are clustered on a peninsula. So I think that red ring hits the South Pole, if this projection's to be believed. So if you're at the South Pole stations, badass. Otherwise, you get a hint of like a partial in any populated area of the world, which is very narrow, the tips of the southernmost non-Antarctic continents. So this is kind of an exclusive one. Like 1,000 people are going to see this thing. But a lot of stuff happening in spaceships this year. Tons of spaceship crap. The Mars Perseverance lander is going to do a replica of the Curiosity's crazy descent with the 7 minutes of terror, radio silence. This rocket pack thing, dropping it off and scooting away, etc. You know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up the video for Curiosity landing on Mars or 7 minutes of terror. I'm still amazed that such a complicated looking thing works so well to drop a small car on the surface of the world. But yeah, that's happening on the I believe the 18th of February. And this launched when Mars was at opposition in a July-August time frame. I believe it launched in late July, maybe early August, I forget. A couple of missions launched to Mars, and they were there was one from China actually called I believe it was Tianwen 1, and that is, you can see what the little lander pod looks like. That's got a lander, and on top of that there is a little rover. It's gonna roll on down and check stuff out. Very I'll say Pathfinder. NASA Pathfinder. And they also have an orbiter as part of this mission too. So it's a very awesome, like, 3-part robot mission. And also the UAE launched something as well, and it's orbiting. It's like basically a cool Mars weather satellite, which is going to be orbiting around the same time in February. And I think the Chinese one, they're all in February except the Chinese one probably entering orbit, but dropping a lander off a couple months later, scheduled for April 23rd. But yeah, speaking of China, they're actually constructing a successor to their little space station that's already fallen to Earth, the Shandong 2, I believe. I hope I've got that right. Is going to be launched. At least a couple of the modules are scheduled for launch this year, and maybe a couple more next year, year after. Funny enough, this is actually scheduled in 2018, but that was like scheduled to be launched in 2018 back in like 1994 or 92 when these plans were, I think, laid out for like there. So I mean, a couple year slip on this is pretty good, and they're actually kind of rushing some stuff to rushing to schedule a bit to try and speed things up. So it's kind of fascinating there. The delay was due to some issues with the Long March rocket that are really fixed now. Yeah, new space station, and it's going to be interesting to see how. I'm very fascinated to like actually catch this in orbit. I wonder how many times it'll like this and like the ISS might appear to cross. Fun. I wonder if they could. Ooh, that'll be fun. If they ever pass by each other. I can't really see each other. One can dream that they park next to each other and chat. So if people are like, oh, 2018, now it's launching in 2021. That's like 3 years delay. It's terrible. James Webb has been delayed for, I swear to Christ, a decade. But this is scheduled to launch in October of this year, and it's going to be a big deal. And I don't see how it can be delayed much further, but it probably could be. This is the James Webb. um, yeah. So it's basically the successor for Hubble. Well, for a while they were saying, please don't call it the successor to Hubble. It's doing a different thing, and it really is. It's not meant to be serviceable. It's out. It's going to be out for a mission life of 3 years. It's an infrared telescope meant to see like even further back in time. Very cold, being launched into a Lagrange point. So it's far beyond like low Earth orbit or even near Earth orbit, or I guess it's a near Earth orbit. But yeah, it's not within normal servicing range of any. Funny enough, there are plans for the Chinese space station to dock with their Hubble, similar to Hubble size telescope that they're launching, possibly this. So they've actually integrated like servicing expensive equipment onto the space station, which is extremely fucking cool because turns out they can't really do that on the International Space Station. Very dangerous to dock with other stuff in orbit. But yeah. But who knows what'll happen with James Webb? This is cost like $10 billion too. So if it's a service life of 3 years, then it's done. I assume they'll figure out some way to like get it serviced again. Seems weird to just one and done this. Speaking of expensive delayed projects, another like multi-year delayed thing from NASA is supposed to launch this year. This is the Heavy Duty Space Launch System, which, yes, it will be more heavy duty than the current iteration of the Falcon Heavy from SpaceX / Elon Musk. So this is supposed to be a heavier duty rocket, and that's what they're supposed to use for the Artemis return to the Moon and then Mars program. But again, this has been a lot of delays. This is also a Boeing project, so Boeing's not doing too well on anything right now. Yeah, Starliner is supposed to launch this year again with the crew and a bunch of stuff. A couple launches. There's an unmanned crew, and then a crewed launch, summer and fall, or spring and summer, I believe. See what happens there. That's their also competitor to SpaceX's Dragon module, which I don't believe is meant to be fitted on top of this. This is the Orion deep space capsule supposed to be on top of there. The thing that's supposed to bring astronauts. We'll see how these go. Same with any of this stuff, frankly. So there's a big bunch of commercial rocket stuff going out. So the last section is just all the commercial stuff going on. These are from NASA promo materials for their commercial lunar lander program. None of these actual landers are going to land on the moon this year. That is ridiculous. But some commercial sample return missions may do that if they stick to their timetable. There might be some robotic sample return missions. I believe China actually just returned one a week or two ago, or a couple weeks ago. Those commercial missions are to follow and bringing rocks for NASA to analyze and whatnot. Kind of weird, but hey. Speaking of which, that rocket right in the middle there, that's the SpaceX Starship render, and they did a bunch of multi-engine fire the other day on the number 9 prototype. So that seemed to have gone well. We'll see if Starship goes into orbit this year. There's a chance it might. That's what their stated intention is. I mean, their intention is for Starship to be on the moon by 2024. So we'll see. If there's actually orbits this year, that's crazy. And what else we got? Oh, there's a bunch of new rockets. Blue Origin, the other psycho billionaire guy. Jeff Bezos of Amazon. This is his spaceship company. And Elon Musk has been trolling him on Twitter that his company is so much farther behind than his, blah, blah, blah. Dick measuring contest. And of course, the ultimate expression of one's dick, a rocket fight. But yes, this one also has a first stage, fully reusable lander, blah, 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 going into orbit. Of course, these haven't gone into orbit yet. This year they may. What's this? Oh, apparently Mitsubishi is launching the H3 rocket this year too, so they're trying to get into the commercial launch game. If they might already be, it's always just one of those things where you see some of the Asian companies where you're like, but this is my dryer. There's a Samsung fighter jet, you know? Yeah. It's kind of like, I mean, a lot of companies are like that too. It's not just Asian companies. I mean, at this point, everything is becoming one company in the US. And what was it? Saab. Saab makes cars, is what most people know about them in the US. But in Sweden, they make jet fighters. Badass ones too. Speaking of more badass rocket stuff, the ULA is launching their Vulcan rocket this year. This is something that I thought, this is like replacing a bunch of other of their heavy lifters too. I thought this had launched already. So, yeah, this has also been delayed a whole lot. Everything gets delayed in aerospace constantly. Especially this Dream Chaser, which I cannot believe is due to launch this year. I thought this had been scrapped. But no, this is the little mini space shuttle that could. It's so little because it's just made for people and not actually a lot of cargo. This is more of a cargo-focused shuttle, like literally just shuttling people up and down out of orbit. Use the heavy lifter for the big stuff. Yeah, by I think the Sierra Nevada group. So it's actually not a Boeing thing. So maybe it will launch and be okay. Ah. This is something I just found. I think they're doing testing of this, but they're not actually. This is obviously a model. There's a Japanese company called PD Aerospace for Pulse Detonation Aerospace that is using a pulse detonation engine to trial in a space plane, which you can see here, which looks an awful lot like an F-15 or F-18. So pretty sick looking. This brings my dream of hopefully having Robotech happen in real life one step closer to reality. Yeah. Anyway, they're testing stuff with this year. There's not a lot of pictures. This could be totally like a bunch of bullshit. But look it up. It's very fun. PD Aerospace. Pulse detonation. That's just a fun one to close this part out. Anyway. Boom. So that's a little preview of 2021. In space and stargazing. So, for the stargazing stuff, let's just sum it up with, you got a lot of, there's a good meteor shower in August, a lot of kind of hard to see planetary conjunctions, morning and evening, but hope for some activity on the sun. The sun is the thing to watch, 2021. And if you're at the remote edges of the world, also true because you can see eclipses. What else is there? Fun space stuff, a lot more commercial stuff. A lot of commercial stuff. A lot of stuff on Mars to start the year off. Then a lot of commercial stuff and stuff on the moon for the rest of the year. A lot of first-timer rockets going up. It's going to be kind of interesting. And yes, a crap load more of those internet satellites. There'll be tons of satellite trains. But anyway, that is our low-key what's going up. Doesn't say. We will be back with some more fun shows of some sort. We'll probably just do specials from here on out, because it's maple sugar season, and that is our big thing to do. Also have to work. Between working and sugaring and just kind of living, we cannot do a regular show every week, but we'll still do some specials, and maybe we'll return to regular scheduled programming after Maple's sugaring season done. That takes place from February. Well, really kind of starts now because I got to prep for it. But it really, harvest, so to speak, is from basically mid-February to mid-April. We'll see. Hope we'll have some good syruping, but until then, talk to you later. We'll be back with some fun specials. Might start streaming games. Might start making some produced videos. Who knows? But we're just having fun. And we're glad that you've decided to have fun with us. It's been great. So thank you for joining us on Star Time, Stupid Brunch Show, Jagged Orbits, etc., etc. The New Year's show was so much fun. Yeah. It's been a blast. Just practicing streaming, practicing all this fun stuff, chilling and getting in touch with our friends, etc. It's been great. Y'all rock. See you in the new year. Stay sane, everyone.